Okay, here we go. And next question is lovely, lovely name. His name is Daniel. He says this: what do you think of the relationship between the hinge and the hip thrust? Well, I think the hip thrust is a hinge. So let's just leave it there. One thing that I guess I'll just have to use a pen here. But with the hip thrust, okay, this would be your feet. Let's just say there's your head. When you're at the top, that your glutes become the thing that holds the whole structure up. Okay, does that make sense? Your glutes are what keep you on top. And when you do swings, when you hit the top, your glutes drive you in there, and then your structure on a swing is what keeps you tall. So obviously you're squeezing your glutes, your quads, your feet are grabbing the ground, your abs are engaged, your lats are engaged, and all that. But the engine that holds you in the glute bridge now, so the hip thrust becomes a glute bridge when you do it into an isometric, is your glutes. This way it's going to be an explosive hip bang, and then it's going to come right back for another rep. Okay, so the structural difference between the vertical swing and the horizontal-ish hip thrust is going to be a little bit different on how we're going to hit the glutes. I like using isometrics to train everything in the body. So that's why I think hip thrust should be part of the package of training in the kettlebell world too, because it gives you a chance to feel with time what the top of a swing should feel like. Oh, but that's not your question. Oh, I did answer. Okay. Are they in the same family? Yes. Can one temporarily or permanently replace the other? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So if someone's struggling with swings, I have them stop swinging immediately because I don't want them to do crappy ballistic moves. It's hard on the body. And we regress back to either grinding hinge movements, Bulgarian goat bag swing, the waiter's bow, the Romanian deadlift stretch. Those are my three favorites. The deficit deadlift done swing style, if you have to have a good eye, and the person doing them has to be disciplined, that your training would have to be disciplined, because you're just hinging, you're not deadlifting. You could do that. If those don't work, I move to the hip thrust, the glute bridge, and that thing we used to call the pelvic tilt, which is much more of a just squeeze it's a way to practice bringing the pelvic bowl underneath the rib cage. It's you squeeze the butt cheeks and tighten the abs. These little movements like this, and if you have to go back to that, that's fine too. It's still a good exercise. You can even do it while you're standing in line. Just squeeze your glutes. I guess you could do that. I don't know. Does the hip thrust have to be loaded if doing heavy hinges? You ask a good question. And the question inside the question is this: can hip thrusts replace swings? Can swings replace hip thrusts? I would say, if you have to, you're going to be sent to this prison where all they have is hip thrust machines. You probably would be fine. And your friend gets sent to another prison where they just have kettlebells. I think you would both be fine. I think the answer is in the doing in both cases. So the one thing I do like about the hip thrust, and that's why I like to use bands as my resistance, because the bands are constantly, it's their job to pull you back down. And so I don't even have to coach. On a glute bridge with bands, I know that the bands, you're fighting against the band's tension just with the glute wall. Well, I'm sure other things too. With the kettlebell swing, when you hit that position, it's boom, boom. There's a thing in the orchestra called a kettle drum. Boom, 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 boom. And I like that image of doing kettlebell swings. boom, 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 boom. With the hip thrust, you have a chance to stop at that top position. Now, stopping at the top, sometimes it's called racing the bell, can be done with the kettlebell swing, but the bell is coming down and you're playing, we used to say, playing chicken with it, okay? I don't think you asked an either or question here, okay? I don't think you did. If you come to my gym and you train with me, you'll do hip thrusts and swings. You will do both. I get, this is what we do. There are people who get more out of the hip thrust, and there probably are a lot of people who get more out of the kettlebell swing. It kind of depends on what you're going through. It would be interesting. I do that 10,000 swing challenge thing, and it would be interesting to do the 10,000 swing challenge idea with the hip thrust, because I think it's pretty possible to knock out sets of 50 in the banded hip thrust without thinking too hard. But doing 500 hip thrusts a day for 20 days, I mean, I don't know. I've never done it, so I couldn't tell you, but there might be a real interesting thing that comes out of it. One, I would imagine, is that your posture would improve. I don't know if you get it. I don't know if there's any injuries you could get doing it. I mean, there's always equipment failure issues with injuries. A band breaks or you catch your finger, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I don't like the idea of replacing either one. Both of them have great value. If you're currently not doing one or the other, add it into your program. And I love having hip thrusts and swings in the same training day. I think it attacks the glutes and the whole system from two different directions. And that's pretty good. That's not bad. Someone was telling me not long ago that the value of doing suspension trainer push-ups was, and then like a bench press or a one-arm bench press or whatever, was this ability to attack it from, using gravity from two different directions. And I thought that was an interesting thing. But in the hip thrust swing thing, it's completely two different directions, which is, I don't know, kind of a fun idea to kick around. Good question. And Daniel, of course, lovely name. And I appreciate you asking it. Both.